Hi everyone, welcome to our Tracy Barlow YouTube character profile upload for YouTube. Everyone know what we're doing now? Tracy Barlow, not Tracy.
Clear.
Well, Tracy McDonald, Tracy Barlow. I didn't know what to call
Tracy
this one.
Preston.
We had to have discussions, didn't we, about whether we label this a Tracy Barlow or Tracy McDonald.
Was she Tracy Preston?
Probably was for a little bit, yeah. She's been Tracy many things, but mostly she's been Tracy Barlow, even though she's not at the moment, so that is what we're calling this episode. And this is a little bit of a different one, isn't it? Because this is not just one character profile.
No, it's a double hitter.
Double whammy, just like when she smacked Charlie over the head twice with the statue, once to wooze him up and second to finish him off.
Yeah.
Back on episode 9 of the podcast, which we recorded in 2012, we did our first character profile of Tracy. And 7 years later, 8 years later, I've lost count. We've done her again. We've caught up. So for this YouTube upload, we've merged them both together. So for the first 20 minutes or so, you'll be able to hear what we said about Tracy back in the first one. And then we've got what we recently put on episode 413 of the podcast to get a bang up to date. And you never know, maybe we'll be back in the future to do a little bit more, because I've got a feeling that Tracy's going to be here for a good time to come.
I hope so.
Certainly hope so too, because I love her. Here you go, enjoy our character, Preston, Barlow, McDonald, Langton, character profile. Okay, so the character profile this week is going to be Tracy Barlow. We thought because Street Talk would be fairly short, we'd have a kind of a major character for the main character profile. She was born on the 24th of January 1977 to Deirdre and Ray Langton. So far the character's been in just shy of 1,500 episodes, so that's quite a good innings for her. The character was first played by Christabel Finch. There's been quite a few young actresses that have played her over the year, and she was obviously just a baby when she was first cast, at 15 days old I think I read. I found it interesting that Tracy was the first baby born to two Coronation Street's characters since Peter and Susan Barlow had been born in April 1965. So it had been over 10 years since two characters had had a baby in the street, and considering the rate that babies are popped out now, there seems to be babies born a couple every year for the drama.
That seems strange to me.
Yeah, so Christabel left when her family moved to Guernsey in 1983. And after that they didn't replace the actress for quite a long time. This was when she was infamously playing her tapes upstairs whenever anyone asked what Tracy was up to. She came downstairs a few years later with a new head, played by Holly Chamaret. She played the role from 1985 to 1988, and then Dawn Acton took over the role in 1988 onto 1995, and she made a couple of reappearances in the late 90s as well, I remember. Tracy's currently played by Kate Ford, who's been playing her for 10 years now. When she was recast in 2002, Dawn Acton auditioned for the part, but producers wanted a fresh start for the character, and they were going to take her in a more sort of devious direction, and they thought that Kate Ford fit the bill much better. So what do you like Tracy? What do you think of her as a character?
She's good at scheming, isn't she? She's always up to something.
Yeah, when we were reading through sort of blog page or wiki pages about her for this character profile, it reminded me that there have actually been quite a lot of good storylines featuring Tracy, particularly since her comeback.
Yeah.
Lots of good memories.
Well, I've only been watching it since Kate Ford.
Yeah, so you didn't remember anything from the older actor, and to be honest, I remember only a few scenes with Dawn Acton in here and there. So for me, Kate Ford is Tracy, and she is the scheming bitch that we know her as at the moment. Let's have a look over some of her storylines then. So she was born in 1977, like we said, to Ray and Deirdre. In 1978, Ray had an affair and left for Holland. Deirdre and Tracy were going to go with him, but decided not to, and then they were taken in by Emily, who I think is Tracy's godmother.
Yeah.
I quite like seeing scenes with Tracy and Emily, and
Emily's always like, "What are you doing? You're crazy."
She's like, "Oh, Tracy."
Like she's got to be Christian and forgiving, and sort of err on the side of generosity of spirit towards Tracy. But really, if you knew her in real life, you would wring her bloody neck, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's quite. I think Emily is kind of the only older person that Tracy ever shows any kind of respect to.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, she doesn't give two figs about anyone else, does she?
No, she doesn't usually try to con Emily.
She doesn't usually try to go. That's about as nice as Tracy gets.
Yeah, that's the
isn't it?
nicest thing we can say about her. In 1979, Tracy was thought to have been killed when the lorry ran into the Rovers. I don't know whether you've seen that episode on
I've
the
seen
DVD.
clips of it with the pram.
Yeah,
something.
Deirdre left the pram outside the Rovers, and the lorry went into the side of it. Deirdre was distraught, but it turned out that she'd been taken by a friend just in case.
Just think of all the trouble that would have been saved if little Tracy had died unsullied by the world.
I know.
Without ruining anyone's lives or murdering people.
Yeah, old Charlie Stubbs would be alive and kicking.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Alive and kicking Shelley, probably.
Yeah, probably.
In 1985, Tracy ran away to Newcastle because Deirdre and Ken wouldn't let her get a dog.
Yeah, I'm going to do this because Michael won't let me have a dog, and I love dogs.
No.
So I'm going to run away.
Like it.
I'm going to run away to Newcastle until you buy me a dog. Fine.
In 1989 to 1990, that was when the whole Wendy Crozier and Ken Barlow storyline was going ahead, and Tracy actually supported Ken for some of that. Because when it all started going pear-shaped between him and Wendy, he wanted to get back to Deirdre, whereas Deirdre just wanted to make a clean break, and Tracy wanted Deirdre and Ken back together. She wanted that, I guess, stable parent figures, as stable as you can get.
On Coronation Street.
On Coronation Street, yeah. In 1992, she got her first job at a flower shop run by Maggie Redman, who was Ken's girlfriend at the time and an old flame of Mike's, and this is where her career in floristry started. That seems to be the only thing that she's actually any good at the moment. She learned from Maggie about Deirdre and Mike's affair because she was only, I don't know, 5 at the time, I think, 5 or 6. So she had no idea about the history between them, and this led to the classic scene where Tracy described Deirdre as
a rotten cow in tart.
A rotten cow in tart. I think that's a famous one that you've seen. I've seen. I haven't seen the episode. Great insult there. She became even more of a rebel after that, and for example, she kissed Deirdre's boyfriend, Doug Murray. And at 16, she left school with 4 GCSEs and worked at the flower shop full time. And she also left home to live with 20-year-old boyfriend Craig.
23-year-old, it says there.
What did I say?
20.
23.
23 is way more.
Yeah. Then she wasn't really in the store in the program for much after that. For a few years, she kind of only turned up if she wanted something from Deirdre because she lived off the street. In 1994, she was against Deirdre's marriage to Samir.
Why was she against it?
Just because he was this younger toy boy. She didn't like the idea of Deirdre having this younger guy. She thought that maybe he was taking advantage of her, or she was taking advantage of him, or something. I don't know.
She had to be grateful, didn't she? Because in 1995...
Yeah, that was when she had one of Samir's kidneys. She was hospitalised after taking bad ecstasy at a club. She had kidney failure, and Samir was the donor. Now, this was one of the early storylines that I remember watching, because I started watching it around this time.
Yeah, so Samir was accosted on the way to the hospital to donate his kidney.
Yes, and that's when the storyline was changed, because he was originally going to die giving the kidney, and I remember reading about it in the papers. They had to have a very quick rewrite and a reshoot to have him get beaten up instead, because they didn't like the idea that it might make people not want to donate their kidneys. And they wanted to show that it was still a safe-ish operation.
Really, that's really interesting, because we were talking about how soaps should educate people and how responsible they should be, and whether they have to take responsibility for things like that. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah. In 1996, she met and married Robert Preston, and they went to live in London, and she was pretty much out of it from then. There were a couple of backs and forths to Weatherfield. For example, in 1997, she came back and approved of John Lindsay, who was the guy that was responsible for Deirdre being sent to prison. He was the one that said he was the airline pilot, but it turned out that he just worked at the tie shop. So even he fooled Tracy, and then that was pretty much it. I think she came back for one of Ken's birthday parties, I read. But in 2002, that's when she made a proper comeback as Kate Ford. Yeah. Do you want to lead on from there, because you watched some of that?
Okay, yeah. She returned after some marriage problems with her marriage to Robert Preston, and it ended in her having an affair, but she said it was him. And she slept with Dev.
It's not as bad as Deirdre sleeping with Dev.
Well, yeah, she found out that Deirdre had done the same, and she told Ken, and Deirdre threw her out. And then in 2003 she had quite a dramatic storyline when she had a one night stand with Steve and then bet Bev a penny that she could sleep with Roy.
Yeah. So she drugged Peter.
She drugged him with like a date rape drug that somebody had been trying to slip into Shelley's drink.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was Roy, who's a really popular character at the time, made everyone hate Tracy even more.
It was kind of a bit gross. It was all a bit icky and it wasn't funny at all. It was just kind of sad and tragic. And
it was, because I mean I remember the episode when Roy woke up next to Tracy, and there was a real mixture of comedy and really sort of the comedy was him sneaking down the stairs and Deirdre catching him walking out the front door. But then when he went back home and he had that shower and he was just horrible. That was horrible. It was really well acted.
That was pretty. You don't usually get that kind of the side of a man in that situation, so that was good that they sort of showed that.
Yeah, in the same way that they're showing Tyrone getting beaten up at the moment.
So Tracy's trick then was to pretend that the baby was Roy's, and she cons the Croppers into adopting the child for £20,000.
Yeah, and the Croppers only agreed to it if she would marry him, so that he would have some rights over the baby. And this is quite interesting.
It's like what they're doing with the surrogacy storyline, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit. So at the time, Roy was kind of married to Hayley, but not legally, because back then, even though they'd had the ceremony, it wasn't a legally recognised marriage, because transsexuals weren't allowed to get married back then.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and Hayley was one of the witnesses at the wedding. She obviously didn't like the idea of it one bit, and you can't imagine what that would be like.
What an uncomfortable wedding.
Very. And then
so this is Tracy's continuous sort of never-ending quest, really, to get back with Steve for some reason. She's like a little salmon trying to swim up the river constantly, and Steve's at the end going, "Come on, Tracy, come to me."
a lot more in the last 5 or 6 years or so, maybe, I don't know. She's just been constantly wanting to get with Steve after Steve. So she revealed that the baby was his one Christmas, and then
that was before he married Karen.
Yeah, and then on February 2004, she gave birth to the baby. It was called Patience back then, named by the Croppers. She was handed over to Roy and Hayley because Steve wasn't interested. But after a chat with Blanche, Tracy decided that she was going to fight for her daughter, and that led to the excellent scene at Steve and Karen's wedding when Tracy burst in and revealed the shocking news that Patience wasn't actually Roy's baby. And do you remember Karen and Steve were in the side of the church, and then Karen threatened Karen threatened Tracy with her high heel, with a stiletto heel.
Get you in the eye with it.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
That's the only reason you should ever wear stilettos. So you can gouge out Tracy's eyes, even if you don't know her. Yeah. And even though she is a fictional character, at any moment she could strike and ruin your life.
So she took the baby from Roy, renamed her Amy, and she did actually give back the money.
Why did she give the money back?
I can't remember.
She was probably shamed into it by somebody. So she spends the rest of her time trying to get between Steve and Karen, and
she revealed to Karen, for example, that Steve was still paying her maintenance money for Amy. Karen decided that they should try for their own baby, but she couldn't. She turned out that she couldn't have babies, which led to Tracy's nickname of Baron Karen.
Yeah, that's kind of like what happened with Becky.
Yeah. And that was much to Tracy's delight, of course.
Yeah, Tracy loves it when women cannot have children, doesn't she?
Yeah, nasty.
She's a cow in tart herself.
She has become the rotten cow in tart. In Christmas 2004, Steve threw Karen out.
But he still didn't want Tracy, because who would?
Who would want Tracy, to be honest? The main storyline then for Tracy was when she was dating Charlie Stubbs. He'd been jilted by Shelley at the altar. Brilliant scene. And then Tracy thought that he was a suitable challenge. And they pretty much spent quite a while winding each other up.
Yeah, they were quite good together, I thought.
Yeah.
And by good, I mean really bad for each other.
Yeah,
great to watch.
Tracy started pretending that he'd been abusing her. For example, she was burning her arm with an iron, and I think there was a scene where
she was acting all kind of scared.
She pretended she locked herself in upstairs in the house and calling out the window. I remember. So everyone,
she like knocking things around as well.
Yeah,
and turning up music and shouting.
Yeah, exactly. So eventually, when she killed Charlie after he'd had numerous affairs, for example, with Maria. Everyone believed her that she was doing it in self-defense because he'd been horrible to her and abusing her for all this time.
So he was basically clocked out on the sofa, wasn't he? And she whacked him over the head with a statue.
That was an excellent scene. That was sort of very tense because it was the fact that he took 2 knocks as well. Do you remember the first knock, and then he was kind of all dozy, and then the final one.
Gross. Horrible.
And then she ran over to Deirdre and was like, "Oh, mum, I think I've killed him." Oh,
but he deserved it.
Well,
not really.
David was convinced to lie for her in court in return for sexual favours.
David.
And Deirdre, who was supposed to be a character witness for Tracy, fell apart in the court because she knew the truth. There was a 2-hander episode, I think, between Deirdre and Tracy where Tracy revealed to Deirdre that actually she'd planned it all along.
Well, Deirdre's just awful.
Deirdre is very supportive of Tracy. She can't ever quite bring herself to
believe that she's that bad, because who would?
It's a bit like Vera and Terry. Vera Duckworth always saw the good side in Terry, no matter
what he did.
And Tracy is very good at manipulating Deirdre.
Well, not good enough, because of Deirdre falling apart in the dock. Tracy was found guilty.
Yeah, and sent to prison with no parole possible in any way until 2022.
Oh no!
But in December 2010, she was back. I thought it was pretty ridiculous that they brought her back.
Yeah?
Yeah, because the way they did it, saying the forensics expert from her trial was exposed as being a fraud, she was granted bail.
But that was part of stuff that was going on in the news at the time about things like that happening.
Yeah, but it was really unbelievable.
Really? I don't think so.
Yeah, well, over the next year or so, she was trying to drive a wedge in between Steve and Becky, and then in 2011, last year, Steve tricked her into a custody agreement over Amy. He'd given her a job at the Rovers and was leading her on to believe that they had a future together, but once he managed to trick her and get one over on her, he promptly sacked her, and then brought Stella in as a manager. Then there was a bit of a storyline last year where Steve got her pregnant.
Steve got her pregnant.
Steve got her pregnant again. Yeah, and then she lost the babies. She claimed that Becky had pushed her down some stairs.
And that hit Becky quite hard.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that prompted Becky to leave.
Yeah.
Not before Steve and Tracy married, and Becky then revealed that Tracy was no longer pregnant when they had that argument. So it was nothing to do with Becky.
She got the medical records, didn't she? And revealed the terrible truth, which led to Tracy and Steve separating, which left Tracy free and single to mingle with Ryan, and then have another baby, perhaps.
Do you think that Tracy is ever going to get her real comeuppance? Because whenever there's a murderer or any villain in a storyline, they usually either get murdered or sent to prison for good, and the fact that she's been sent to prison but got out again, there's the feeling or something hanging over her, the fact that she hasn't actually paid for what she did.
Yeah, I do remember there was a television program we watched once with the Coronation Street producer or somebody involved in making the program, who said that on Coronation Street villains always get their comeuppance, which kind of kills the tension in storylines. Don't you realise that?
Yeah, but it just doesn't sit well with me that she's still wandering free around the street, and nobody seems to remember that she's a murderer apart from Norris.
Norris brings it up, but the thing is, though, I do think she's been punished, and the thing about it is that I do think Corrie gives you a bit of leeway when you're doing wrong to a villain, because Charlie Stubbs really was a git.
Yeah.
And he wrecked poor old Shelley, didn't he?
Yeah.
By abusing her, and I don't think anyone was sad to see him go. And he really, although he gave as good as he got with Tracy, he still was a horrible character.
Yeah, I know.
You can't say he was an innocent victim. It's not the same as when poor old Maxine got offed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think she's going to get comeuppance. I just think she's going to continue meddling.
Well, I think that there's going to come a time when there'll be a new producer that comes in at some point in the future, and they'll say, "I'm going to cause a stir by writing out Tracy," and I do think she's going to end up either dead or in prison. Really? I don't see her staying on to it. Yeah, I think.
Is she ever going to get back with Steve? Because she seems to just love Steve. I don't know.
She's stopped now, hasn't she?
I think it's because she can't have him. Because really, why else don't you want him?
I think
Sorry,
Steve has made it
Steve.
so clear. That he's going to have a bit of a personality transplant to really want to settle down with her.
For 10 years though, she's been after this guy. So really, the only way out is for Steve and Tracy is like Romeo and Juliet. Double suicide. No?
I can't see it. No.
Well.
Anyway, so that was a bit of an extra long character profile. Important character. Great character.
Well done, Kate Ford, and the rest.
Everyone else.
Hello and welcome to our character profile revisit of Tracy MacDonald. This is for episode 413 of the Conversation Street podcast. I'm Gemma.
I'm Michael. Hello. This is a revisit for the first time. Was she Tracy MacDonald the last time we talked about her? Was she Tracy Barlow? I don't know. This is at least the second time she's been Tracy MacDonald, but I think she was probably Barlow again by the time we spoke about her last time, which was in episode 9 of the podcast, recorded way back in October 2012. And we've got a lot of love for Tracy, and we've talked about her a lot since then. But we haven't actually done the proper, character profile revisit up till now. So I thought it was a good time. I don't know why that was a good time, but why not?
Tracy was definitely a bit more of a wrong'un back when we did this profile, wasn't she?
She was, although it's now Friday afternoon, or early Friday evening. We haven't watched today's Corrie yet. And the last thing that we saw Tracy was doing was having a massive go at Emma for
allowing
supposedly...
Eccles to
I didn't like that. I was like, oh, come on, Tracy, show a bit of compassion here. I know you got it in you. Because she's still got a nasty streak. But, because we see it a little less often now, I suppose, when she does something a bit like this, it doesn't quite sit right with me. But on the whole, I am definitely still a massive Tracy fan. She's definitely one of my favourite long-term Corrie characters.
Yeah. Which
is basically what we were saying about her back in episode 9. We listened to that again earlier in the week, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes, we did. And back then she'd been in just shy of 1,500 episodes, and actually I haven't written down how many episodes she's been in now. Do you want to have a little look on the old iPad, see how many episodes she's been in now? We talked about the fact that back then she had just told Ryan Connor that she was pregnant, and I'd completely forgotten that her and Ryan were even an item.
I know.
She's been through so many men, but I rember about Luke, obviously I remember about Steve and Tony and everything, but I'd completely forgotten that her and Ryan were going out. I don't know whether they've mentioned it since Ryan came back recently or what, but anyway, so that's why we talked about her then.
Though, wasn't it?
It was Sol Harris Ryan that she was going out with then. We said that she was good at scheming. We said that there were lots of good Tracy stories. We talked about the fact that she's constantly after Steve, because earlier in 2012 was when she had been marrying Steve, but Becky had broken up the wedding by revealing that Tracy had been dishonest about Becky's miscarriage or Tracy's miscarriage. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, and one of the things that I said, which was quite interesting, was that I didn't think she would ever get back with Steve MacDonald again, unless he has a personality transplant, which is quite interesting, really, because I would say in the past 5-6 years since we've recorded this, 8 years since we've recorded this nearly, Steve MacDonald has gone through somewhat of a personality transplant, don't you think?
You definitely said that he had. I don't think I noticed it as much as you have, but you said he's become a bit more of a buffoony.
He really has, and I don't know when it started, but I think that, kind of thinking back on when we started the podcast, a lot more viewers would have sort of easily picked Steve MacDonald as their favourite character, and I don't know whether so many people would do that now. And he's become a bit more of a simpleton. He's become a bit more of a comic relief character, the same way that Gail has, the same way that Deirdre had. I think he was a lot more serious back then. I know he still had a comic side, but I'm also watching him on the 1995 episodes on ITV3, and I would say there's very little of modern Steve in the old Steve. He was really cool back then. He was brought in as one of the hunky teenagers. Whoa. He was very, he was very business minded, and he still is. He's got his street cars. He's been in charge of the Rovers and everything, and you could see that he had entrepreneurial ambitions from quite an early age. And also he was a bit of a chancer back then as well, and I think he still is, and a bit, takes risks with women that don't necessarily pay off, but generally as an attitude, I I would say that Steve is a lot more, just a bit thicker now, a little bit, happy to let women walk right over him. And I don't know whether it was going out with Michelle that, finally made him give up the ghost on that one.
Now it can't be as bad as when I was with Michelle.
Yeah, maybe. But for whatever the reason, he is obviously not only back with Tracy now, but he also married her a year and a half or so ago. Although I did say as well back in the original character profile that I thought that maybe one day a new producer would come in and make a stir by axing Tracy, because there was still the whole murdering Charlie Stubbs thing that she had a little bit of punishment for, but the early release didn't sit right with me, and I thought that she was still owed a little bit of that soap justice, whereas you didn't mind. You said that Charlie was a git, so he had what's coming to him, basically. You just thought that Tracy would continue meddling for years to come, which she has done, although, as you said earlier, she has had a little bit of a tone down somewhat since really toxic Tracy days.
Toxic Tracy.
Have you found out how many episodes she's been in now?
Yes, I have, and I also found out
tapping around on the iPad
that it was 6 years ago today that you posted pictures of us going on a tour of the Coronation Street set.
Oh yeah, that was
Happy
good, wasn't
days.
it? Those are the days. Yeah.
So Tracy has been in 2,239 episodes as of episode.
So not quite double as how many she'd been in, but
I don't know that one.
No one asked you.
No, I thought it was Alexa talking to her. Although maybe we've had more sort of more than double Kate Ford than we'd had back then, I guess. But speaking of which, I did want to talk a little bit about, before we find out what Tracy's been up to since 2012, we sort of scroll back a little bit, because the last couple of years I've been enjoying the classic episodes of Coronation Street on ITV3. I kind of started watching at the tail end of 1989 after it was when Alan Bradley got splattered by the tram. I kind of wanted to tune in to watch that again, and I just haven't stopped really. So I've seen the first half of the 1990s now, which is when Dawn Acton's Tracy was at her high point. I think Dawn Acton came in 88, so I've seen almost her whole tenure, and I've been really, really impressed by her. I've loved that version of Tracy. My heart is still with Kate Ford, I have to say, just for the comedy and the bitchiness that's been involved, that's been brought into her. She wasn't the massive cow that she is now back then. But I've really got a lot of love for Dawn Acton's version of Tracy, and I think she came across as a very believable, moody teenager. And I know it's a bit of a kind of a soap archetype, isn't it? It's a rites of passage. If you're a teenager, you've got to go through the rebellious phase. But she came across as being very believable, and the relationship that was set up between her and Deirdre and Ken, and those two had obviously split up at the time after the whole Wendy Crozier debacle. It was very believable and very understandable why young Tracy would rebel quite so much, and she was very difficult for Deirdre to manage, but I felt that she had a reason for it. She just feels to me like a real teenager, rather than, a teenage actress being told, right, you need to act this way because this is the kind of teenager
you are.
We want you to be a
moody one.
What was it? What's the Harry Enfield, Kevin kind of teenager?
God,
which
Kevin.
Is what, or She felt believable, and she wasn't all done up all sexy or anything like that.
Yeah.
Although there was a bit of a transition period in the last few years when she kind of when she flew the nest and she went off to live with a dodgy older boyfriend, and Deirdre had to cut the apron strings. But yeah, she just came across as being very real to me, and we're just in the middle of seeing her ecstasy storyline. So she's been hauled up in hospital and just been told that she needs dialysis, and now she's on the waiting list for a kidney donor. And Deirdre's tried to get the test done to see if she's a match, but she's not, and Ken's not a match either. And now Samir has stepped up to the plate and said, "Oh, Deirdre, maybe I have the test too, and you go to Tracy, you can have my kidney, and we go back to Morocco." And it looks like he's going to be a match. And Definitely. It's been weird watching this Samir stuff, because if you were to have asked me a year ago how much of the Samir storyline had I watched back in 1994, 95, I would have said that I pretty much watched all of it. But I'm still seeing an awful lot that I don't remember watching. But, I was only 12, 13 at the time. But I absolutely 100% definitely remember watching Samir, sorry, spoiler alert, from 1995, getting beaten up and left for dead so that his organs could be harvested and transplanted into Tracy. I definitely watched that. But it's been nice seeing Samir, because you'd heard about him and you've kind of been watching bits of it as well, and he's a really nice guy, isn't he?
I said this before on the podcast, I get him confused, because he's Samir Rashid, right?
Yeah.
And I get him confused with the one that stole all the money and blamed Deirdre, because when she went to
John Lindsay, yeah.
Yeah, when she went to prison, she was called Deirdre Rashid.
Yes.
And that's probably why I got confused.
But Samir is the nicest bloke.
I'm glad that Tracy got his kidney, that good for nothing Samir. Yeah, but he's so sweet and lovely. He's like the nicest character.
I know, he's like not got a bad bone in him.
No.
But so many of the Corrie residents kind of turned against him or had preconceptions about him and prejudice about him.
Darling.
Because they thought that he'd come in, wanted to get a visa, come and leech off us.
A little bit of racism in there.
Yeah, but there was a really genuine pureness of him.
Aww.
And now he's saying that Tracy can have his kidney, but it's really because he just wants to cart Deirdre back off to Morocco again so they can carry on their life there. But
don't you dare say a bad word about that precious boy.
But Dawn, as I say, Dawn Acton has been really, really great. And I was watching this morning while you were in bed the Kids of Coronation Street documentary on YouTube, which was made in 2004, and as well as having the likes of young Sam Aston in it, young George Taylor, young Sally Ann Matthews, which is a nice treat, because I didn't know very much about what I suppose we must have watched it back in 2004, but it wasn't significant to us back then. But
things have changed somewhat.
Somewhat since then, but it also had some interviews with Dawn Acton, and this was what I'm trying to think. I can't remember when Kate Ford started. I think it was 2002 that she took over the role of Tracy. So this was only a couple of years into Kate's run on the programme, and Dawn had auditioned to play Tracy.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
No, and Dawn seems a little bit bitter about it. And
really?
Because in her final years, in the mid-90s, she was not in the programme very much. She'd moved away from the street and kind of started off a new life, and she'd just come back, now and again when she wanted something, really. And Dawn was saying, and then they married me off to this Robert Preston, and then they said, oh, well, that's it for Tracy now, but if you want to come back again, you can always re-audition. And that made her think, well, do you not want me? Is there something wrong with me? And she did, but ultimately lost out to Kate Ford, and it's a shame, really, because I do like it when they keep the same actors and actresses for things if they're good, which I would say Dawn Acton was. But Tracy today would be a very, very different character had Kate Ford not taken over the role, because she's certainly made it her own, hasn't she?
Yes. Sorry, I'm distracted because the cat is clawing at the door.
The cat is clawing at the door. Do you want to? Have you got anything else? Any preamble to this that you want to add while I lean over and let the cat in?
No, not really, except to say that we're going to pick up talking about the character of Tracy from 2012, which is after we did our original character profile. So you're going to need to go back all the way to episode 9 to listen to the first half of Tracy's character profile.
We've pretty much said what our opinions on her were.
I know, but we haven't said what has actually happened to her. Quite a lot happened to her.
Quite a lot happened to young Tracy.
She had a kidney transplant.
Yes.
Etc.
Indeed.
And she went and listened to tapes.
Yeah, that's the key information for Tracy.
She called her mum a rotten cow in tart.
Rotten cow in tart, indeed. Oh, that was the other thing on this Kids of Coronation Street thing. It had Dawn and who else was there? There was Davy Jones from the Monkees, because he was in Coronation Street. And
he's always in documentaries about it. He loves it, doesn't he?
I know. And there's a few of them that went to revisit the set, and they had to look around, and they had a drink with Bill Roach, and then they had a reunion with Anne Kirkbride and Dawn Acton, and that was really, really touching. Especially, obviously, now we no longer have Anne with us.
Yeah.
she was like really happy to see her and hugged and everything, and then she kind of got all serious and like, I really, really miss you.
Oh, who did?
Anne.
Oh,
Anne
no,
to Dawn
that's so
Acton.
sweet.
And she's like, oh, we don't have, you know, people aren't as crazy as you were. It sounded like that Anne and Dawn
really
had a really, really special relationship.
Aww.
And it has come across, and they are, like I said, Dawn's version of Tracy seemed very, very genuine, and the relationship, the chemistry between the two actresses really, really helped. I think it gave them a genuine mother-daughter sort of feel. But we got it with Kate Ford and Anna as well.
Yeah.
So as we were saying, 2012 was where we left off on our character profile, and that's when she was going out with Ryan Connor. Which had you remembered that?
No,
before?
Not at all.
It's like fine, whatever. And she told him that she was pregnant, but she was just faking it.
It was just flatulence, like on the Windsors.
And he ends up. I can't remember. Does he end up with how she end up? I don't think it really matters ultimately, but it did bring about the end of Steve and Michelle as well. So
hooray!
Maybe a good thing. What happened, Gemma? I'll let you talk for a little bit. What happened to Tracy in 2013?
Well, she divorced Steve and she moves on to Rob Donovan.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was a bit of I always really like Steve and Tracy together, and I feel like they're for me they're one of the most iconic Corrie couples for me.
Yeah, of the modern era.
But I would say if there was a great love of Tracy's life, it probably is Rob Donovan.
Yeah.
I really think that he's the one that would have kept her.
He would have kept her, and he would have kept her on a chain. He would have. Yeah,
different.
Mark Bayliss and Kate Ford also had a really kind of sizzling.
Yeah, they did. They had great chemistry together,
and a lot of the guys that Tracy has been out with, she's been able to walk all over and been able to get around her little finger, manipulate exactly. But I would say that with Rob, she was happy to
let him take the lead.
Yeah, exactly. Be dominated, or I don't know. That sounds a bit dodgy, but he was a real kind of man's man, and she was happy to be
the little woman at home.
Yeah, basically.
I'm just going to complete all your sentences. So together, Rob and Tracy work at the Underworld packing department, and they steal a load of material. And this is when there was that big rivalry and hatred between Carla and Rob, who are brother and sister.
Yeah.
And really, they stole it to get back at Carla, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Then she works in telemarketing for a bit, which is like,
that?
no,
I've got vivid memories of that.
Did she do it from home?
She did it at home on the table, and the storyline title we gave it was Call Trace, because it's like tracing a call. And back then you said that was awful, which looking back on it, it kind of was. But yeah, she was a telemarketer for a bathroom company or something. She was having to sell toilets over the phone, and she was useless at it. And then Deirdre kind of took over some of her shifts, and Deirdre found herself to be a real natural at it, because she could get a rapport with the customers really quickly. So that was
yeah, I can't see Tracy really motivating herself to give two hoots whether you bought a toilet or not.
She's not a natural toilet salesman. You're right.
No. She doesn't even care if you buy flowers, and she works in a florist shop.
Although, saying that, she did, by the end of 2013, have her own kind of bric-a-brac shop, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Rob gets the bookies off Peter and turns it into Barlow's Buys, which is, like you say, the bric-a-brac shop. It was like one of these cash converters kind of stores that's like not really a charity shop, but it sells the same kind of stuff. And he and Tracy run it together, and they had... They have like Windows 95 in there.
That's the main thing I remember. They had a box of Windows 95 on there, but didn't they have the cast and crew when they asked to bring in bits and bobs from their attics and whatever to fill it up?
I don't know why. Oh, this was before they moved sets, because now really the props department is enormous. I don't know how big it was before, but I'm sure they could furnish a bric-a-brac shop from the props department without resorting to help.
It felt like it was quite a modern, relevant sort of shop to open up. Those kind of things have been springing up quite a lot over the past sort of 10 years or so.
Not so much anymore, but around that time there certainly were quite big.
Yeah, and I appreciated the change from the bookies, because that had been a bookies since, early 90s, and I was getting a bit fed up of it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I never really understand odds.
Yeah, so having a proper shop there, especially with characters that we knew. I mean, I suppose when Peter ran the bookies, we knew that, but there was more reason for characters to go into a pawn shop than there would have been going into a bookies, because there's only going to be a certain type of character that's going to go into a bookies to have a bet.
Yeah, exactly.
So 2014, Tracy throws Rob out when she discovers that he'd been having a kiss with old Tina McIntyre, the slag. But Deirdre persuades Tracy to take Rob back because she can see that they're good together. And Rob was, as we said, perfect for keeping a tight rein on Tracy, which she's the sort of person that needs it, because left to her own, she can run rampant, run amok.
I think she's definitely infatuated with Rob more than anyone else.
She really, really was. I mean, both of us really do like Steve and Tracy together, but I know there's a lot of Coronation Street fans that don't. With the thing with Steve is that ever since they were teenagers together on the street, she's known him, and she's had crushes that have come and gone, and sometimes they make out that Steve's always been the love of her life, and sometimes not, but they just kind of feel like a natural fit, and it's kind of nice and comfortable seeing Tracy and Steve together, and they're not perfect for each other. Maybe we talk a bit more about them as we get to the end of this. But
Rob and Tracy are more like a sort of a fiery romance, kind of a burn brightly and burn out kind of a thing.
But sadly, it was over quickly. I could totally see if they hadn't axed Mark Bayliss from the programme, Tracy and Rob could have gone on to be a real strong couple. And they were looking like they were getting towards their springtime, because they get engaged in April. But during their engagement party, she sneaks off with Tony Stewart, which was Jason's dad, wasn't it? To go and pick up some dodgy goods, because he was trying to sell
it through her shop.
Yeah, a load of stuff off the back of a lorry through her shop, and I think they'd been very resistant, especially Rob, I remember, was very resistant to any of that kind of stuff, but Tracy was more easily won around.
If you're going to commit a crime, murder's the one to go for.
Yeah, no half measures here. So that was, as I said, that was the night that Rob killed Tina.
Yeah.
Why did he even kill her? I'm trying to remember.
She was mouthing off, wasn't she?
She was born
Carla.
gobby. Yeah, something like
that.
It was all caught up in the Peter and Tina affair, and he knew about her. And anyway, he pushes Tina off the scaffolding and then bludgeons her with a crowbar.
What did you do that for?
And
then he kills her in the hospital.
Did he?
Or am I thinking of Sunita?
You're thinking of Carl killing Sunita in the hospital. He didn't properly kill her.
He did kill her. He killed her with a wrench or whatever.
Yeah, but she was alive in hospital for a bit, Tina, because I remember her lying scantily clad on the hospital bed, like Lady Gaga in the telephone video.
Or that character in Fifth Element.
Yeah, but anyway.
Yeah, why? I hated that so much. They took all her clothes off and then just covered her with a blanket. Like, why would you do this?
Ratings.
Which pervert doctor?
Horny viewers.
Get me the doctor in charge of this. Oh, Dr. Pervert.
This was as Britain's Got Talent week, and Corrie is saying, "Look at the talent that we've got on here."
Yeah,
I know we're getting rid of her now.
But...
So now
why did they get rid of sexiest star?
So now we had these two killers engaged to each other, Rob and Tracy, and Rob
both beat people to death.
Yeah.
Bludgeoning's the way to go, baby.
Yeah, it's probably best that they didn't stay together, because think of the monster they would have created should they have procreated. Anyway, he gives the police the alibi that he was in bed with Tracy.
Yeah.
When he was actually bopping Tina on the head.
Yeah.
So he was safe for a little while. However, Carla, over the next few months, manages to realise, I can't remember how, but she sees through Rob's lies, and she realises that no, he couldn't have been there with Tracy, and basically it must have been Rob who killed Tina, and she tells Carla this
on the wedding day of Rob and Tracy.
Yeah. So Tracy, I think she decides she's going to go through with the wedding anyway, but she
meets up with him in a basement, doesn't she?
Yeah, they go on the run together
basement.
For a bit.
But she actually tells the police where to find him, and he gets arrested.
Yeah,
she
shops
tragic.
Her fiance,
her husband,
to the police. Were they married? Did they get married?
I don't know. You seem to say that he did.
I don't remember it being Tracy Donovan. I think they might have done a runner before the wedding, you know. And Tracy kind of felt that it was the right thing to do. I think she realised that life on the run, which is what they would have basically had to have done, probably wasn't the best for Amy. And in a surprisingly good mother move, she decides to put her daughter's safety and welfare in front of this dodgy guy, although he is ultimately the love of her life, as we said. So Tracy
blames Carla for this, and this is the start of the feud.
Yeah, whoa, the Tracy and Carla feud of 2014,
what
15, 16,
laborious story that was to get through.
It started off really exciting, and Tracy, when she's got, an arch rival, can be really fun to watch, because bitchy Tracy is really fun, and she's had some awesome lines. Like, I remember, like, Tracy versus Karen, Tracy versus Becky, and Tracy versus Carla at the beginning was fun too, but they just didn't know when to stop.
No, it was just so boring at the end of it. It was just always them seeing each other on the street like two dogs barking at each other. Yeah,
basically. So by the end of the year, Tracy is having a secret relationship with Tony Stewart, remember, who we talked about earlier. He was also dating Liz McDonald at the time. And also, by the end of the year as well, Rob has been sentenced to 25 years in prison. So anybody thinking that this romance for the ages between Rob and Tracy is going to be rekindled anytime soon.
No.
Sadly, I think you got a bit of a wait.
Coronation Street doesn't care about.
I know,
like
and they did let Tracy out a little earlier than she was supposed to be.
Yay.
But I don't think that they could pull the same stunt twice. And also, they can't even have him like getting out for good behaviour or anything like that, because he did escape when did he escape? 15, 16? I can't remember. So he's going to be hauled up in there for quite a while, which is a real shame, because I would say Mark Bayliss as Rob, and looking back on it, was a real asset to the programme.
I thought it was brilliant.
And Coronation Street did kind of sacrifice him.
Don't know why they did.
They needn't have done.
Yeah, okay. 2015, the underworld mini bus crash.
Oh yeah, Tracy was on that.
Saw Tracy and Carla on the bus together, sort of teetering over a cliff.
Yes, it was, wasn't it? Carla was at the front of the bus, and Tracy comes on, and it was a real like, should I rescue my mortal enemy kind of moment.
Let her die.
So this is one of the things I like about Tracy. She isn't all bad. She's got a bit of, goodness in her. She's got a bit of a conscience.
She just doesn't always pick right.
Yeah, basically. But she did this time, although if she hadn't, it maybe would have ended the Carla and Tracy feud a bit earlier.
There was nothing really in it for her to let Carla die, I don't think. You know what I mean? Like, it maybe should be indebted to me if I save her life.
She's already got Charlie Stubbs' death on her conscience. I don't think that even Tracy could have handled another one.
She also reveals to Liz that she was seeing Tony. This was on the eve of Michelle and Steve's wedding.
I didn't like Tracy and Tony together.
I don't get it why they were together anyway. She kind of regrets saving Carla and decides to break into her flat and kill her. I guess she thinks to herself, well, she kind of owes me her life anyway. So if I decide to kill her, is it really murder? I don't know.
Yeah,
is that how it works?
She goes into Carla's flat one night armed with a candle made by beautiful Sinead.
Yeah. Remember when Sinead made candles because nobody else did?
she was planning to clonk Carla on the head, Richard Hillman style, but
Tracy Barlow style.
Oh yeah, yeah, Mark too. But yeah, she hears somebody in the toilet, so she runs out there, leaves the candle underneath a lamp or something, and then that sets the whole flat on fire.
And she didn't know that Amy, her daughter, was in there at the time.
She was the mystery loo flusher.
Yeah.
And the midnight wee.
So she's a bit worried about that, but it turns out that Amy was fine and so was Carla, that was a bit of a waste of time.
I think lots of Corrie fans, I think I've got quite good memories of that particular Britain's Got Talent week. It was very dramatic, but lots of Corrie fans don't particularly like it.
I did. There's a very famous publicity photo, which is the one that almost always turns up. You search for pictures of Tracy, of Kate Ford with the
firelighter,
the flame in her hand, looking sexy, going, "Oh, I'm gonna burn your house down."
Yeah, although that isn't quite how it happened.
No, not really.
But I did like the fact that Amy was in there, and that was something that hadn't been revealed to the press, or I don't know about the press as a whole, but viewers beforehand. So that was we knew that the Victoria Court was going to be set on fire. I think we knew it was going to be Tracy responsible, but we didn't know that she would almost be responsible for killing her own daughter as well. And ultimately, it didn't really have many consequences, but it had a little bit of extra drama.
This is the fire that killed Cal.
Oh yeah, it did. But having Amy in there didn't particularly come to much in the end.
But Maddie died as well, didn't she?
Yes, Maddie.
it spread to the garage, and the garage blew up as she was running past it.
I blame that Jenny Bradley.
I blame the fact she ran past the cordon. She shouldn't have.
They're there for a reason, Maddie.
Yeah, exactly. So Tracy decides to cover her back by spreading the rumour that Carla was drunk and started the fire and killed Cal.
I'd believe her.
And Carla gets depressed and develops a gambling addiction, because that's fun, isn't it? Everybody likes Carla getting depressed and developing gambling addictions.
Was this? I think this was the beginning of the downfall of Carla.
Yeah, this was when Carla was boring.
We really, really, really used to love Carla.
Carla was my favourite character by a mile.
Yeah, of the current characters, the contemporary characters, you would always say that Carla was your favourite. Yeah. And it was around this time when they started piling tragedy upon tragedy upon her. Addicted to gambling, addicted to booze, addicted to men.
Being involved with Peter didn't help for me. I think it was the beginning of this year with the minibus crash and everything that she just and the rivalry with Tracy was dull.
Yeah, I say it's interesting because I would say that Tracy has been able to ride that one out. She's come through the other end. She's because. Fine. Although I was still enjoying Tracy at this stage in 2015, by late 2015, early 2016, I would have happily, got rid of both of them, or at least had them on an extended break. I was so fed up of this feud, just this constant back and forth between them.
Yeah, because it was weird because I didn't care about who was on top.
No.
It's like I don't care whether it's Tracy or Carla because I like both of them. I can't, and it's not like you feel stuck in the middle or anything. I just genuinely I was disengaged in it completely. It's weird.
Carla had just kind of given up the fight, hadn't she?
Yeah,
when she always used to be so kind of spunky and so with it and everything. She kind of collapsed in herself. She let Tracy get to her.
Yeah.
And like I said, Tracy has come through the other side of this, and she's just as good as she always was, I would say. And I know that, as I say, there's lots of Coronation Street fans that don't like Tracy.
And lots of people that really love Carla too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even
though Carla's still having misery piled upon her
5
just
years
from
now.
different ways because of her kind of kidney thing recently and a mental collapse last year and Aidan and everything and this is why you need to be careful with characters like
this is what happened to Chesney.
It is, yeah.
And
but
Gemma.
I'm thinking of the likes of David as well, who's having to ride through a lot at the moment. If they bloody ruin the character of David Platt, I will write a strongly worded letter to Coronation Street. and even Emma as well.
Yeah, be careful. You've got to be really careful.
Yeah.
So Tracy gets back together with Robert after Deirdre's funeral.
Oh yeah. I don't know why Robert I'm saying Preston. That I wrote these notes. I just haven't read them for a few days since I wrote them. Yeah.
So this is when they were on the sofa, weren't they?
Yeah.
Ken gets mad at.
Well, I think Ken was mad at Tracy because he'd found out from Bev, who Deirdre was staying with, that Deirdre would have come back earlier, but she was too ashamed of Tracy, and I can't remember what it was that she'd done.
She's always doing something.
Was it something to do with her affair with Tony or something coming out? But Deirdre couldn't face her daughter, so didn't come back. Obviously, this is the story that was spun when really, tragically, Anne Kirkbride had passed away in real life. So Ken had a massive go at Tracy. She kind of runs off from the funeral and ends up at it on that very uncomfortable sofa in the Barlow's front room with old flame Robert Preston, now played by Tristan Gemmell. And
that was him, wasn't it, from then? And Robert was a returning character who hadn't been in it for years and years and years.
Yeah, so Robert was...
But he wasn't played by him before.
No, he was played by someone else before. Another case of the head swaps. This is Tracy's ex-husband.
Yeah. So Tracy eventually reveals to Carla that it was her who started the fire because Carla was going to chuck herself off a cliff.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're no vicar, you're not going to survive.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?
Billy's got God on his side.
Yeah, you don't, Carla.
Yeah, sorry. Carla, sorry to break this into you. That was kind of exciting. Just having that teacher in there over the cliff edge, but it's just gone on too long.
And then Tracy gets arrested, goes to the cells overnight, but she gets released. I don't know. Do they say, "Oh, just go. We can't be bothered with this"?
You're like Teflon
really
Tracy. There's
no
even
crime.
point.
I don't know anymore. I don't even know what crimes are, to be honest.
We saw Rob again at the end of 2015. We thought we'd seen the last of him when he was carted off to prison, but he did make a little cameo towards
the invites Tracy to visit him in prison and says, I miss you, but he's actually just messing with her to get revenge on her.
For shopping him in.
Robert finds out about this and dumps her instead of proposing to her, and then ends up in bed with Carla.
Yeah, I think Robert was going to propose to Tracy on Christmas Day that year or something, and I think maybe she'd found out about it. She'd found the ring or something. Maybe I'm making this up, but then she was expecting to be proposed to, but actually he dumped her because he realised he'd found out about her.
I'm not going to be second fiddle
to Rob. 2016 then, Tracy was desperately trying to get Robert back because he was another bit of a infatuation for her. She does get like that with some men, doesn't she?
Gets really obsessed.
A bit desperate. She just needs a man, does Tracy? Yeah.
She needs somebody to take the bins out.
So she decided
2016.
Yeah, 2016. That's when she opened the Florist, which I thought was a great move for the character. They got rid of the Barlow's boys. That only lasted 2 years, maybe.
Yeah, not very long.
I did like it turning into a florist, and it also was a nice callback to Tracy's original career as a florist when she worked for Maggie Redman in the early 90s. So now she is the boss of Preston's Petals, which she called that to try and say to Robert, look, I still love you, I'm naming a whole shop after you. And
weirdly, although Robert's dead, there are still 2 businesses named after him.
Yeah, I know.
On the street, which is really odd because he is not at all the sort of character that you think would have a legacy like that, but there you go.
Well, it's not called Robert's Bistro, at least, is it? But...
Well, isn't it? It does have his, didn't it?
No, there was Nick's. Nick had it as Nick's Bistro for a bit,
but it was called.
Don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it did, but in any case, yeah, the
still his business.
And the florists now is the only memory that anyone has of Robert on the street because he got shot at Christmas, and basically nobody cares. Nobody's mentioned him. He's not had a funeral. We've not had any of his any other family or relatives. Literally nobody talks about Robert anymore.
See, he was so focused on continuing his legacy through his genes, he never stopped to think about what people's memories would be of him.
He was too busy trying to become Manchester's greatest chef, nay, the world's greatest chef.
Yeah. And hilariously, Tracy employs Todd to work at the florist, and they were great.
That was a great double
act.
Because
they were both so bitchy to each other.
They were both bitchy.
And neither of them cared about
more
selling
venomous
flowers.
than the deadliest poison ivy.
Yeah.
Keeping it on the floral theme there.
I don't think you sell poison ivy in a florist, but...
Okay, they were thorniest than the most beautiful of roses.
All right.
They were a really great double act.
I love them together. So she tries to win Robert back, and he eventually gives in because he can tell that she's not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, he gets badgered into submission. Does Robert?
There's nothing more romantic than being badgered into submission.
However, she then finds out about his night in bed with Carla after he jumped to the previous Christmas, and blackmails Carla into getting Nick to sell the bistro to Robert.
And this gets really messy, doesn't it? The ownership of the bistro.
Oh yeah, ownership of all businesses is messy.
Get so confusing.
How many percent does this person own?
Who cares?
So anyway, Robert is now in charge of the bistro. And also, that was during Carla and Nick's wedding. That was when Tracy was going to, or she plans to reveal all about Carla's night with Robert anyway. Even though she got the bistro, she was still going to go through because she had this hot gossip.
Yeah, so I can't hold it in.
That's when Johnny got Jenny to trap Tracy in the cupboard at
Brilliant.
Underworld.
This was so great when
was a brilliant couple of scenes
Jenny
there.
did this.
Yeah. But anyway, she manages to escape. Because do you remember that was also when Tracy was worried about her kidney medicine? Every so often, like once every 3, 4, 5 years, they remind us that Tracy is on daily kidney medicine.
Do you remember that Tracy's on kidney medication and also Amy's lactose intolerant?
So if they need to, if they want to have Tracy trapped in somewhere for a certain amount of time, they have to say, what about my medicine? And apart from that, she lives a perfectly normal life, which is a testament to our NHS and the jolly good job that they're all doing. Let's give them a round of applause, please, every Thursday at 8 o'clock.
It's also quite funny that Tracy and Carla are rivals and they both have someone else's kidney.
Very true, There's
something about being a horrible bitch that makes your kidneys die. Was this not the wedding, Carla and Nick's, when Nick was asking Carla to tell him what colour his napkins were?
Yeah.
And really he should know, because I'm sure they discussed the theme at length.
Nick was going slightly crazy at that point.
Everyone.
But anyway, so Tracy does manage to escape and wreck the wedding, which causes Amy to disown her for a little bit until again, Tracy has a bit of a kidney.
Oh, my kidney's hurt.
Kidney ache, and she collapses in the ginnel, and Amy realises, you are me mum after all. I haven't got any other notes 2016 for Tracy. I think she maybe had a bit of a quiet second half of 2016.
She's had a very busy period.
She has. She's been jolly busy as old
When
Trace.
we spoke about her first in episode 9 to now, she's done so much.
She has been a pretty major character.
2017, she has a secret relationship with Luke.
Now, I remembered that one more than I remembered the Ryan, although I couldn't remember very much about what happened with it. They wanted to keep it quiet. It was another weird age gap kind of relationship. She likes, she'll have a man whatever age he is.
Don't care.
Same with Ryan,
Why
also very young, because she comes. I think some certain guys like the appeal of the sexy older woman. But she's not too much older, so that it gets into like with Erica sort of territory,
or Deirdre and Dev territory,
or Deirdre and Samir, I suppose, which is the original version.
Yeah, but
of that.
Deirdre was pretty hot back those days, wasn't she? Still quite good.
If you like a curly perm,
everyone did back in those days,
and big
glasses.
Coke bottle butt glasses, yeah.
They split up because Tracy doesn't want to make it official, and he then suspects her when we have the Who Pushed Ken saga. Thinks there's something
we're into Kate Oates territory now.
Oh yeah, so
Who Pushed Ken?
Loved it. So she goes on the run with Rob. He escapes from prison, and they run off together. And
yeah, she has to. He this is when the gym closed, wasn't it? And he was hiding out in the abandoned gym for a bit, and then because that was a lovely little red herring they put in, because it made just think, maybe Rob was the one that pushed Ken down the stairs.
Maybe it was him what done it.
But they go and run off to
they run off together
or something, don't they?
And Tracy thinks that it was Amy who pushed Ken down the stairs. So when they finally get arrested and caught, she tells the police that it was she that it was. She's the one who
for her
pushed
daughter,
Ken down the stairs.
Wasn't the one that did it.
And then Tracy gets released with a suspended sentence, and Amy gets this alibi that means that it wasn't her that did it. And eventually it comes out that it was actually Daniel, and everybody's like,
that was very exciting.
Why did you say that, Tracy? And she's
I liked
for the drama.
those scenes away.
Well, my life
more
dedicated
Kate Ford
to
and
the
Mark
drama.
Bayliss together. Mwah, fantastic.
Tracy and Steve start dating again, and Amy doesn't want them to get together because she thinks that they're
bad for each other.
Well, they're bad for each other, and that also she can't be bothered to cope with all their drama. And also be stuck between the two.
Yeah, because
she's very smart.
Amy is a pawn in Tracy's game.
She's also smarter than the two of them put together.
She is with the newly dumbed down Steve. I'll tell you. Although she's a smart girl, isn't she?
She's cunning, but I wouldn't say she was smart.
Well, yeah, maybe you're right. Although both Steve and Tracy were together on that Top of the Tree quiz show, weren't they? In a car or something in that.
Wow.
Anyway,
where's that gone?
2018, Steve and Tracy got engaged again, I guess to Amy's displeasure. But Tracy starts to think that Steve and Abby are having an affair. And there was I was convinced that was going to happen. There were lots of kind of clues and hints that Steve and Abby were going to be getting together, but there was just a bit. Was there a kiss on a bench or something? Does she kiss him and he?
Don't kiss people on the bench. It's dirty.
So Tracy, because she thinks that Abby is having it off with Steve, she sabotages the car that Abby's working in, and that's the one, that's Michelle's car, and that was all then involved in the Ronan drama and everything.
And then Abby gets in trouble.
So another possible death on Tracy's conscience there. I think she's got over that. I mean, if Dr. Ali actually did kill him, and he's fine about it, so I'm sure Tracy's not holding any kind of lingering regrets or anything. So anyway, Steve and Tracy do get married. Punching Steve in the middle of the first dance because she
wrote him a thing, so he gets a free pass for a spa, but he read it wrong, like he gets a free pass for a shag, and then he goes off and sleeps with Leanne.
Yes, and I think Tracy didn't go into this wedding realising that, but I think didn't Leanne whisper something to Tracy about it was because Tracy had picked some awful page boy outfit for Oliver.
They had an argument about it, didn't they?
And Leanne was having had a bitchy whisper to Tracy about that, but then Tracy thought it was to do.
She got confused. Yeah, it was a misunderstanding.
Oh no! Tracy whispered. Anyway, there were misunderstandings, and basically it turns out that Tracy discovers about Steve's night of passion with Leanne.
I should remember these things better. It's like I've got this mist in my head.
There's an awful lot of Coronation Street to cram into that little brain of yours.
They go to on honeymoon to Morocco together, I guess because her kidney missed it.
Oh, they did have some lines about that, didn't they? Didn't she say something about my Moroccan kidney's homesick or something like that?
But she leaves him in the desert to make his own way back, which is implausibly hilarious.
Implausible, yes, that's the word.
You were doing this.
Was I doing 2018?
Sorry, yeah.
Well, anyway, she realises when she gets back that that the car that she sabotaged was partially responsible for Ronan's death, so she steals the laptop from the garage to try and cover up the fact that she
done it.
Yeah, and I can't remember. Didn't she? Wasn't Abby going to turn herself in, and then Tracy stops her or something like that? There was a really nice friendship building up between Abby and Tracy that's kind of gone now, and I think that those two actresses really did have a good spark.
They did,
each other.
And they're really fun too, because you really can't predict what they do.
Both very unpredictable characters, and we've seen Tracy make friends with the likes of Mary, with Beth. Todd, of course.
Her and Beth were best friends, supposedly, but...
Yeah, that was just a bit of a weird friendship.
Well, that was because she moved in... Steve moved Beth in to the house when he couldn't get Tracy to move out.
It sometimes feels a bit to me that Tracy and Beth were a bit forced friendship together. And you know... When Beth needs somebody to talk to, she'll go over to the florist and go, "Hi, babe."
It feels a bit like two people that were friends from school and now they've got nothing in common.
Yeah,
but they're still friends.
Yeah, whereas Tracy and Abby, even though they'd only just struck something up, it did feel like that worked really, really well. And I think I've seen interviews with Kate and Sally Carman both saying that they'd like to have more together, and I concur with that.
Yeah. In 2019, this is when Tracy finds out Amy's pregnant. She pressures her into having an abortion, but she doesn't want to. So then Steve and Tracy decide to raise this baby as their own and pretend it's not Amy's, but Amy feels neglected and has an abortion anyway. Ungrateful child.
And there was that storyline over in 5 minutes.
Never speak of it again. She steps in to drive taxis for a bit because Steve loses his licence.
And that was a story that...
Did he beat James or Michael?
No, didn't he lose his licence because he did that unlicensed pickup?
Oh, yeah.
And then he nearly got beaten up himself.
Yeah, but then
he did go after James Bailey with a baseball bat as well. So that was a weird. that felt like a story that was kind of happening off screen, or
I know.
the Weatherfield women taking over streetcars.
Yeah, and then
but we didn't get to see any
anymore.
of it. We saw Tracy driving a taxi a couple of scenes,
and then every so often they go, "Oh, I've had to drive the taxi today."
Yeah, and now it's gone back to normal.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Then she has a one-night stand with Paula after feeling neglected by Steve. It's like, I guess it's like 2019 didn't ever happen.
That whole thing with the affair, I don't know.
The pregnancy, the taxi driving, the lesbian affair. We get to 2020 and Coronation Street don't talk about it.
Just forget that. Because that was the big New Year's drama, wasn't it, this year? That Tracy, seemingly out of nowhere, seems to think that she's being neglected by Steve. And that for me, was never given enough build-up for me to sympathise with Tracy about it.
No.
So she decides to get drunk and have a one-night stand with Paula. Because apparently when she was in prison, she
dabbled with lesbianism.
Yeah, they really... did a number on Tracy's character in the past 6 months.
Character assassination.
But as you say, it's kind of almost been forgotten about now.
Yeah, we all pretend it didn't happen because apart from changing the sexuality of a well-established character, which I think is a bit underhanded and problematic, it also changed Paula's personality, because I don't think Paula is the sort of person who would have an affair with a married person.
No.
Especially knowing what she knows about divorce law and things. If Steve, because are they married? They are married, aren't they? If Steve decided to divorce Tracy, he could name Paula in the proceedings as one of the reasons why. Yeah. And I don't think either of them would particularly want that to happen. Yeah,
and Paula's just gone completely. Fallen off the edge of the map since then as well, hasn't she?
Yeah.
She was in it for this big bang at the beginning of the year, and we haven't seen her since. And obviously Sterling Gallagher's now got a job. What's she? Is she Holby now, or something like that? She recently was cast in something else, so no reason for us to see her for a little bit, and especially with Brooke off on maternity leave, we're not going to we don't need Paula on the show. We've already got 2 other lawyers. I I still think we might see her again, and if we do, I would like to. I don't want this to be mentioned.
Don't talk about it.
Don't revisit it. I want to see a bit of stability with Steve and Tracy. I'd like them to stay the course now, and they're no Jack and Vera, they're no Stan and Hilda, but they've got so much history that I'd really appreciate just trying to keep them together. I mean, I want to just keep any married couple together on Coronation Street because they're so bad at the moment keeping married couples, out of the beds of someone else, and it's just they either get divorced after a few years, or as in the case with Sally and Tim, and Kirk and Beth, it turns out that they weren't even legally married. It's bizarre. So I say let's keep Steve and Tracy together.
The only way that they can really maintain harmony in a marriage on Coronation Street is to do what they're doing with Jenny and Johnny and just never have them in a scene together.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. The main problem I have with those two together is it's just perpetuating Steve's goofiness. It's infantilizing Steve. He's been he was literally dragged by the ear by Michelle at one time, but I'd really love to see a return to the slightly more sensible, grown up, savvy Steve that we had 10 years ago when he was still funny, but he was a lot cooler. I
don't mind it how it is. I kind of like Steve being a goofball, and I think that it works really well. That's why I like Tracy and Steve together, because her bitchy coldness and his kind of warm-hearted lovability doofiness definitely go together, and that's one of the reasons why Jack and Vera was so popular, because she was always on at him for something and he was always trying to get away from her, and it feels as though if they want to ever emulate that, definitely to me it's more fun to have that with Steve and Tracy, although I guess people would argue Tim and Sally also have that role, although where the hell have they been? They've not been in it.
They've barely been in it. With Jack and Vera, though, sometimes you could see that Jack would sometimes get one over her as well, and sometimes Vera would, go off and do something stupid, or when she was sort of bleating on about being related to the Queen, and Jack would be like, no, don't be such an idiot, of course you're not. Whereas it seems a bit more one-sided with Tracy and Steve, and she's the trouser wearer. But I will accept it to keep them together, and now they're moved into number one together, haven't they?
Yes, that's right, because that was the story for this year. Really, the only thing they've done is fighting with Peter over who gets number one.
Which
now
also,
that Ken's moved off to Shady Brooks. Or
I'm still not. Do you remember when they had the sealed bidding, and Peter gives a little wink to Carla when Tracy opens the envelope, and it turns out that Tracy's won, and it's like Peter had some secret plan there. And I don't know whether we ever knew what his secret plan was.
Well, Carla and Peter both had a plan, didn't they? And I don't really know what. Because Carla didn't want to live there. And Peter just didn't want...
Peter did.
Peter did, but he wanted more for...
Simon.
No. He wanted more that Ken wasn't going to be... got won over by Tracy.
Well, to be honest, I think that Tracy more than deserves to live in that house, because she spent an awful lot of her childhood living at number one, and it does feel right to me that she's still there.
Off to Scotland.
They do need to redecorate, like I said in last week's podcast. It doesn't look right just keeping the same horrible
just put random horrible
pictures
canvases
up. But yeah, I would very much like to see the Barlow legacy continue there. Although I suppose it's McDonald at the moment, isn't it? But maybe Amy will inherit it one day and continue forever.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to talk about Tracy?
I don't know. We've spoken a lot about lots of things.
Yeah, I've written down a few discussion points here. We've kind of covered a lot of them as we've gone.
It would be cool if she. The thing is, before Robert died, I really wanted her to rename the florists, but now he's dead, it would feel really disrespectful for her to be like, it's time for a change.
Well, they did this with the salon, because when Alma was dying, she asked Audrey, can you name the salon Alma's? And it was called Alma's for a bit, for like a year or two, and then it just kind of changed back to Audrey's again.
What a bitch.
I know. But
she's like, well, she's definitely not haunting me, so I'm safe.
So the longer they leave it, the weirder it'll be that it's still called Preston's Petals. And to be honest, if I was Steve and my wife was working somewhere
I know.
named after her ex-husband,
her late husband,
I'd think, can you
and
change
it was only
now,
called that
please?
because she wanted to get back in his pants.
Yeah. Then I know she'd say, "Oh, it's a brand," but
it isn't, is it?
Nobody
cares.
really.
Like, it's a florist is like a baker's or like a shop. Whichever's nearest to you is the one you go to. And you don't pick them by the name, do you?
No.
Oh, Preston's Petals, such a catchy name. Oh, I wonder if it's named after Preston from Big Brother.
So would you? Are you happy with the toned down Tracy now?
Yeah, I really like Tracy. I am waiting for her to do something more evil. I don't think she will anymore.
I do. It feels like when, if they want to make a big stir, if they want to do something shocking, or if they want to shake up, Tracy has certainly got it in her to do something terrible again.
Yeah.
I don't know whether she'll ever top. I mean, what is the worst thing that she's done? Is it killing Charlie Stubbs?
I think murder's pretty bad, isn't it?
Yeah, but she can be so scheming, so manipulative. But I do like the warmer side that they've given her, but it'd feel a shame because I do love the scheming side so much.
Yeah,
and the
you can't
side
round her rough edges off, because this is what happens to Coronation Street. It feels like it's like a beach, and the waves get rid of all the edges of the stones, but really you don't want everyone to be a pebble, do you? You want a few big rocks in there with sharp edges. And
I wanted to stay. I said in the last character profile that we did of her, I think that some producer might come in and say, well, I'm going to get rid of Tracy, but it feels like the days of new producers coming in and having a massive axing seem to have gone now. I mean, Kate Oates didn't do it. Ian McLeod didn't do it. It feels like they let people go if they need to, and then they bring new people in. But
to be fair, Ian McLeod didn't have to.
He didn't have to axe anybody. Yeah, we did have that that rush of exits last year. But I think Corrie would be quite foolish to get rid of Tracy. Although maybe Kate Ford would decide one day that she wants to fly the nest and try something else. Because I mean, this is what's happened to Steve's wives, isn't it? Saran Jones, Karen McDonald went off to big things.
She was the TARDIS.
She has been the TARDIS, among other.
She is the TARDIS.
With Catherine Kelly, Becky's gone off and been big, so I don't know whether Kate Ford's going to say, well, maybe I can have some of that. I know it doesn't quite work like that.
Foster.
Being married to Steve McDonald doesn't automatically guarantee you a BAFTA in the future.
They call him the BAFTA maker.
I think it'd be a real shame to see the back of Tracy. I wanted to stay. I really wanted to stay, and I absolutely could not accept a head swap for her.
No.
Even if she goes away for a bit and comes, she has made that role her own so much, and I can still watch Dawn Acton playing her. Obviously, Dawn Acton wasn't the first Tracy as well, but the ones before then were very much just when she was a little kid and she didn't have very much to do. I don't think anybody could play Tracy in the same way that Kate Ford does. I think that she's so nuanced, her performance.
Yeah.
Other people could come in and say, I'm going to be a bitch, but it wouldn't be our bitch. It wouldn't be Tracy.
She can play Tracy as a caricature character, but also as a real, three-dimensional person, which is difficult to pull off.
Yeah. And also, obviously, she has got a new cat now as well.
Well, I mean, she's not going to leave now.
Another reason why they cannot possibly get rid of Tracy.
Yeah.
I mean, although she said that a few weeks ago or a month ago that she was maybe allergic to Sylvester, so they're getting rid of her. But I think we might have seen him once since then. But I do feel that he's going to go the same way as literally every other cat on Coronation Street, just apart from Sonny Jim.
Knuckles.
No, I'm just saying that all cats on Coronation Street, apart from Minnie Coldwell's cat, Bobby, just literally been retired and relegated to the background after a couple of scenes. So maybe
cats are more difficult to wrangle.
Yeah,
they got themselves to blame.
I found a couple of quotes from Kate Ford just to finish this off, which have been given in the intervening years.
When was this from?
I don't know when this is from.
Because she says something specific about what time period this is. So
let's read it. I can't remember. This is in an interview from The Sun that she did at some point in the last 8 years.
Brilliant information.
I always try... I know, number one. podcast for Coronation Street information. I always try to find reasons for what Tracy does, those small moments that explain why she's done something, even if that looks cruel. Otherwise, when she does terrible things, I'm just playing the bad guy and it's boring. See, this is what tells me that Kate Ford really gets the character and cares about the character.
She also understands that, which is irritating that some people don't, even the behind the scenes people, that it doesn't matter which character you're talking about, or they have to have motivation for doing something, even if it's a background character. This is why Rick Neelan was a so much more interesting character than whatever that stupid deputy headmaster that was going on at Brighton was, because we know why Rick Neelan was doing what he was doing, and that motivation really counts, doesn't it?
Yeah. And this is another reason why I wouldn't want to have her recast if Kate Ford did decide to leave, because the last 18 years worth of history and character and motivation and everything that Kate Ford has absorbed, I just don't think somebody else would be able to pick up. Okay. Although, actors are supposedly supposed to be able to do that. Really. Yeah. She also said, now this was interesting, because this was talking about the feud storyline with Carla, and Kate said Tracy was harder to play for me last year, this is during the feud, because she was becoming a bit one-dimensional, but this year she's back on track. The stories are making her a bit more human again, and I like the fact that she doesn't have a female arch enemy at the moment. For a while the script writers would have Tracy fight with someone, then they'd leave, and then they'd give her another arch enemy. It got a bit old.
Ooh, that's a bit pointed, isn't it?
It is. I see. She can be really fun when she's got an enemy, but I'm perfectly happy for her not to have one. I think
they feel a bit safer to say a bit negative things once the producer that was in charge of those stories has left. Do you know what I mean?
True.
I don't think anyone would be saying anything specific now about the last year or so.
No, and let's wait for Ian to move on to pastures new. Rebecca, our listener, who knew we were going to be talking about Tracy today, wrote in and just said a little bit about her. She said that she's one of her favourite female characters. I love it when somebody brings up her killing Charlie Stubbs. That's the thing. We haven't mentioned this, have we? They do like to...
Sometimes she'll drop it in, like...
It's become a bit of a joke.
Yeah, it is a joke.
And I don't think it was quite so much back then, because I think another one of the things that I said on the last character profile is that they seem to have kind of forgotten that she killed Charlie Stubbs. They kind of swept it under the carpet a bit and can we just get on and pretend it didn't happen? But now, every 6 months or so, either Tracy will drop it in or somebody will, and it is a bit silly that it's made into a joke, but I do just laugh every time.
Yeah, I know, I do as well. You have to go with the flow. It's one of these
suspension of disbeliefs.
Yeah,
really.
It's kind of almost like Tracy knows she's a character, and she's like, "Do you know that the one time they made me kill Charlie Stubbs?"
Yeah, like literally nobody cares. I mean, she did have that thing with She had a bit of a feud again with Yasmin for a while, didn't she, after the Victoria Court fire? And Yasmin was determined to see Tracy put to justice for killing Cal.
That's right. She was really gunning for her, wasn't she? Because she was investigating and finding out that.
But now, although people are, wary of Tracy, nobody really seems bothered that
nobody thinks
somebody
she's gonna...
who murdered her ex-boyfriend, or her boyfriend at the time, is just walking free.
Yeah, they're more worried about her making a bitchy comment than her murdering them in their beds, which she's probably just as likely to do, really.
Rebecca also said that she liked her married to Steve and think they could be a classic Corrie couple if they're given time to stay together. Also like her friendship with Mary and running the flower shop.
Oh, yeah, we didn't say about Mary taking over from Todd in The Florist. So they're a good duo, those two. Really fun to watch, because obviously Mary has her flights of fancy and Tracy just kind of rolls her eyes and
she's kind of a straight man in there comes over. She can kind of make fun of Mary and have a bitchy comment about Mary, and
sometimes Mary notices and sometimes she doesn't, depending on what the jokes
I did prefer Tracy with Todd together, but Tracy and Mary
Todd was glorious.
Are quite fun as well. Right, so there we go. That is our revisited Tracy Barlow character profile. Who knows, maybe in 8 years' time
we'll be back
for more, because
Hope so.
As far as I'm concerned, as I say, Tracy can stay in the programme for as long as
she wants,
or even longer than she wants.
We'll make her stay. Right. So thank you very much for listening to this bonus episode character profile of Tracy. Find us on Twitter at Conversation Street. You can find us on Patreon.
Email us
conversationstreet@gmail.com. Find our website conversationstreet.podbean.com.
And we'll be back next
That's it,
time
isn't it? Yeah.
with more Coronation Street goodness. Thank you everybody for listening. Ta-ra.